Welcome to our session called Creating a Brand-Friendly Dashboard Design Framework. My name is Hannah Schoenfeld, and I'm here with my colleague Brianna Wolf, and we both work for the Hartford. For today's agenda, we'll be introducing the topic of a dashboard framework. We'll talk about the approach our team took to build one, some of the challenges we faced throughout the build, and then the benefits we've seen since its implementation. We'll then wrap up with some key findings and helpful tips that we learned along our journey. So first, just a little bit about us. Again, my name is Hannah. I've worked at the Hartford for the past 2 years as a product owner and team lead in a business intelligence organization. Prior to the Hartford, I spent time at various other insurance companies in data-related functions, and I have an educational background in finance and data analytics.
And my name is Brianna Wolf. I've been at the Hartford for 4 years with about 1.5 years in business intelligence. I'm currently getting my MBA at UConn, and I have my bachelor's in computer information systems from Bentley University. Just to give some background on our team, we started out as a small BI team focused on small commercial, but we soon expanded and became a well-established BI group supporting all of commercial lines. The expansion and the rapid growth of our team led to the need to evolve our Tableau capabilities in a way that would enable us to deliver strategically and quickly. The majority of the framework that we'll talk about today was developed while we were still a small team, and it enabled us to be successful as we grew. Around the beginning of last year, we had only 3 BI consultants on our small commercial team with differing levels of Tableau proficiency. As we released dashboards, we saw increasing demand for new ones and enhancements to existing ones, and since we worked in an agile BI manner, there was a quick turnaround time expected. To give some examples of our dashboards, these are examples of what our dashboard looked like before we created the framework, but recreated using the Tableau Superstore data. At first glance, they aren't bad dashboards, but there were certain aspects about them that we felt we could bring to the next level. For instance, you can see that the filters are in completely different areas from dashboard to dashboard, so the users weren't really sure where to look for the filters. Color also had different meaning from dashboard to dashboard. Sometimes orange meant up, sometimes orange meant down, giving a confusing experience for users that were going from dashboard to dashboard. And additionally, our Hartford logo and the Hartford's brand was rarely incorporated into our dashboards, giving a slightly unpolished look. So as a small new BI team, we were doing well, but we knew that we could improve the way that we were designing dashboards. At the Hartford, and I'm sure at your companies, we're always striving to deliver faster and improve quality over time, so we saw some opportunity to bring consistency and polish to our dashboards. So what do? Our team decided to develop a dashboard framework. So what do we mean by a dashboard framework? We broke it down into 3 main categories: incorporating a consistent format, the Hartford's corporate brand, and Tableau best practices into our overall suite of dashboards in order to make a great, polished format that was repeatable and easy to pick up as we onboarded new members onto our team. Here are some of the guiding principles to developing the framework. One of the most important is that it's not meant to stifle creativity, but meant to just be a starting point so that you can focus on the visualizations and making the best analytical story and not stress over fonts, color palettes, and worrying that your dashboard won't be consistent with other members of your team. Over time, it should continue to evolve and help build your team's brand recognition. Today, our goal is to share our approach and some of the lessons that we learned along the way so that you can hopefully develop a framework of your own. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our process for developing the framework. Before we got started, we took a lot of time to review our company's brand and marketing materials in order to understand the corporate best practices so that we could leverage the existing guiding principles. We also researched the Tableau best practices around formatting, layout, and colors, including a lot of Tableau conference videos from previous years, and I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of material today as you were going through other sessions. The majority of our work was done in whiteboarding sessions, where we would bring our team together and try out different layouts, colors, fonts, and give feedback on what worked and what didn't work. Our whiteboarding sessions were usually conducted in a 2 to 3 hour block where we really dedicated that time to focus on the framework. The total process spanned a few months before we finally settled on our final framework. In order to be successful with developing the framework, it's really important to carve out the time and prioritize this initiative, even as you're getting other requests from teams to build dashboards. Throughout the process, we also collected a lot of feedback, particularly from our stakeholders, including our team's management, as well as the Tableau Center of Excellence that's at the Hartford. We also met with marketing representatives and helped getting images and icons that we used in some of our reviews. And then as we made decisions on the design elements, we made sure to document what we talked about, and we'll go through some of the documentation a little more later in the presentation. So here's an example of our framework, and we actually developed a format guide in Tableau Superstore data that I'm going to show. So we did a lot of documentation on our framework, but here's an example where we actually created a dashboard and recorded all of the formatting that we use in each element of the dashboard. So you'll notice in a few spots there's going to be consistency from dashboard to dashboard. We're always putting our Hartford logo in the upper left, having a title that's Tableau book font in size 26. And then on the left, we have an info button where we'll put information such as the data source or how often the data is updated. Now our users always know that if they want to know that information, there's going to be an info button in the upper right that they can hover over to get that. Below, we've got a blue bar down to the color hexadecimal of what shade of blue that this bar will always be. That shows when the data was last updated. And information around where we place our filters, usually on the left or across the top, depending on how many filters we've applied. The middle section of the dashboard is where it's a lot more open to creativity. We try to stay consistent with our color palettes from dashboard to dashboard and with some of the tooltip formatting, but there's a lot more flexibility in the designer to decide which elements they want to include in order to make it most effective for the user. So this is another example using the same framework, but with the filters across the top and with some other types of visuals. So all this information is recorded and easily accessible. So as we've onboarded new BI developers onto our team, they've been able to reference this and be able to produce production-ready dashboards quickly. So for us, we felt the results were really transformative. Our color palette really brightened up the dashboard and incorporated our brand in a thoughtful way. So these are the dashboards that we showed before. Again, not bad, but they were a little inconsistent and they lacked that professional quality. Versus taking a look at some of our dashboards now, even from far away, you can tell that they're coming from the same source, that there's consistency, and the user's going to have a consistent experience from dashboard to dashboard.
Throughout the process of building our team's dashboard framework, we found that formatting wasn't always black and white. So I'm going to talk about some of the pain points that we came across while building out our framework. The first pain point was around differences of opinion. Each team member had their own style and approach to building dashboards, and that typically led to extensive conversations around some of the more critical or complicated decisions that we needed to make. We also had to work through multiple iterations of the framework. Even though we made a particular decision originally, once the team had a chance to see that decision implemented directly in a dashboard, it typically led to further conversation to make sure that the right decision was made. While working through these decisions, we had to be cognizant of the balance between art and science. As Brianna mentioned, we did conduct thorough research around the appropriate techniques and methods of creating effective visualizations and implementation of visual analytics, but we needed to balance this with our own stylistic preferences, as well as the practicality of building for business customers who are used to combing through raw numbers to make decisions. Lastly, was around time and priorities. So we needed to make sure that we were still able to deliver on our promises to our customers while in parallel building out our framework. So in the interim, we ended up delivering dashboards that didn't necessarily fit into the framework, but provided a tactical solution to some of the pressing business needs. So we've identified 3 different focus areas to reduce the impact of the challenges that I just went through. First, the dashboard framework build should not be a linear process. It's an iterative process that allows you to cycle through each step as many times as necessary in order to continuously evolve and evaluate different options throughout the framework. Next, so we would just recommend picking one focus area at a time rather than trying to tackle every single decision within the framework all at once. Even when you make it a decision originally around one focus area, you can always go back and revisit that decision, but trying to tackle everything at once was just way too cumbersome. And then lastly, it's around time again. So while it's important to take the time to make each decision within the framework, whether it's font, whether it's color, whether it's layout, we recommend that you time back your effort so that you don't impact the value that you're delivering to your company. And so now I'm going to talk about some of the benefits we've seen since implementation of our framework. From a dashboard development standpoint, we're able to deliver dashboards much more quickly than in the past because we don't have to worry about the formatting decisions within each individual dashboard and can spend more time on defining the key KPIs or metrics within each subject area, as well as designing the hierarchy or flow of each dashboard. We've been able to leverage the framework across many different subject areas and teams, and we've also been able to leverage it as part of our employee onboarding process to allow new employees to leverage the framework immediately during their dashboard development. And then lastly, the framework was designed in a flexible way so that as new Tableau capabilities were introduced, we can continually assess and evolve the framework to determine the strategic approach to incorporating new features. From a usability standpoint, the dashboard has provided us with branded team dashboards that help to differentiate our reports from other reports throughout the company. The framework has also given our dashboards a polished look, which has helped to increase adoption of Tableau as the reporting tool of choice by our customers. When using our team's dashboards, our users have a consistent experience regardless of the dashboard that they're leveraging, and this has resulted in reduced user training efforts because the primary components of each dashboard is the same. So they know what the colors mean, they know how to interact with our dashboards, and they know where to find specific pieces of information. And so all of these benefits have led to our customers being able to quickly access the information they need in a rapidly changing business environment. So since implementation of our dashboard framework, we have received positive feedback from our newly hired BI developers in regards to the benefits the framework has provided them during their onboarding experience, as well as new dashboard development. We've also received recognition from our company's Tableau Center of Excellence in regards to our ability to distinguish our team from other reporting teams in the company. So comparing to before implementation of our framework, our user base has increased by 300%, and our dashboard usage has increased even further to 600%. We're also able to spend a lot less time developing dashboards as well as providing training to our user base. The framework has ended up becoming a critical stepping stone as part of our change management and adoption efforts. So to be able to continue to experience the benefits of the framework, we make an intentional effort to continually evolve and reevaluate the certain decisions that were made within the framework so that we can make sure that we're delivering an optimal user experience while also taking full advantage of Tableau's capabilities. We've also started regular Tableau show and tell sessions within our organization where BI developers can share either tips or tricks that they developed or prototyped, which has encouraged our organization to innovate and also provides inspiration for future dashboard builds.
So now we're going to transition and talk about some of the key findings and tips that we've learned along the way. We definitely had a lot of lessons learned throughout our process, so we're just going to share a few highlights today that we think can be the most easily translated into your own organizations. The first concept we want to talk about is about guided analytics. So one of the major benefits of visualizing data is that you can let the data tell the story and guide the users through the analytical process. Here on the slide are some concepts to keep in mind when designing dashboards, but essentially you want the visuals to be clearly understood and draw the user's attention towards what is most important. In our framework, we organize our dashboards very strategically. A user is expected to start their analysis at the highest level and let the dashboards guide them to the areas of interest. So scorecard dashboards or strategic, highly visual dashboards are usually at that starting point, and we design them with the expectation that 60 to 70% of their questions could normally be answered by seeing a visual. Within these dashboards, there are drill-down capabilities, but they're kept to the most commonly used views. For analysis that might require more flexibility or are used to monitor a very specific initiative, we might create some more focused dashboards that have additional dimensionality or metrics that maybe aren't as relevant for the executive level dashboards but are absolutely necessary for that specific analysis. So after performing the higher level analysis, the user might identify a specific subset of data that they want to deep dive into, and that's where they can go down to our last dashboard, which is more of a sandbox environment where we've stripped out a lot of the formatting, and we've made it a lot easier for them to download the data if necessary. So we've developed this array of dashboards to help balance the power of art of visualization alone, with also keeping in mind that business need to at times have higher flexibility and detail available. So as a BI team, we're really striving to show the value of that more visual representation of data, but we also want to make as much use as possible of the robust data and dimensionality that we have available. So I'm going to go into our second tip is about colors. So finding the right colors was probably the hardest part of our framework process, and for anyone who might have tried to customize their own color palettes, they probably share the frustration of this quote, that color is my day-long obsession, joy, and torment. So luckily, Tableau has done a lot of the research for you, especially around colors. So we took advantage of their extensive research and preparation of colors and tried to incorporate some of those findings into our dashboards. So they've developed color palettes and best practices to make the dashboards look soft, sophisticated, colorblind friendly, and also just be generally aesthetically pleasing. And one of the most common takeaways that we got from them that you probably have heard of is to avoid red and green and stick more to orange and blue, which are not only easier to see for different types of color impairment, but also take away some of those connotations that red and green might imply. For example, if you have year-over-year sales that are declining, it might be red, but if that was done strategically in a non-profitable area, that might not be a bad thing, so you might not want to associate that connotation. It's also really important to understand your brand colors. So your marketing or your social media departments might have resources that are already available for you to leverage. And bringing that brand into your dashboards helps to add that professional polish, even if your dashboards are mainly for internal use. Here we have the Hartford's brand and some of the primary colors that we use at the company. So if you want to bring that brand directly into Tableau, you can actually add these colors into the software so that you can easily access them if you get the hexadecimal color code. So if the hexadecimal color code for your brand isn't provided for you, you can actually just use the eyedropper on your color in any program like Microsoft Paint or PowerPoint, and then get the red, green, and blue values, and these are unique and will make up that specific color. So once you want to translate your RGB numbers into hex, all you have to do is divide the red number by 16, and then if that whole number is above 9, then you have to use a guide to translate it to a letter, and then you multiply the remaining decimal by 16 to get the number, and then you just repeat that for green and blue, and that's your hexadecimal. Or Google, yes. Thank you. If you just Google RGB to hex converter, you can get it that way if you're not a fan of advanced math. So Tableau provides a lot of helpful color palettes, as I mentioned in Tableau. So you can populate your own by adding the hexadecimal color into your preferences file, as seen in this example, and then it'll be available in your dropdown. And then once you have your colors in Tableau, now it's time to experiment. This is the fun part. So here's an example with just the Hartford's main colors. We found this very bold and a little too dark and really difficult to kind of focus on certain trends. And this also wasn't really aligned with our marketing best practices, which advises you to make use of the accent colors. So we applied some of the Hartford subtle accent colors, and these look really great on our marketing materials or flyers that we hand out, but they're a little bold for the dashboards. And we also found that the map was mostly grayed out in the middle. We couldn't really tell what was up or down. So we decided to try something a little different for our palette that would work for Tableau dashboards and also be brand friendly. So for our framework, we used an online color palette tool to help find a good palette that incorporated the Hartford's light blue. There's a lot of great options out there, but this is one website that we use where you could actually take that color, find the exact complement to that color. So we found the Hartford's light blue and then the exact opposite orange, and then get different gradient shades to make sure that the colors will look good together. So then we just tried out a bunch of different shades to see which one we liked best. And this is where that trial and error and experimentation and those whiteboarding sessions really help, because you can try out different things and then decide which one looks the best for you. Another trick to get colors that look really good together is to start with one color and then apply a transparency to that same color. So this is the Hartford's dark blue, but with an 80% transparency applied to it. So doing this allows your colors to look really good together because they're still from the same base color, while still differentiating between them so that you can provide two different colors that look good together. If you do want to add accent colors or bolder colors, avoid going a little bit too colorful because it can make your dashboard look pretty overwhelming and it will be confusing for your user. So just keeping in mind those aspects of visual analytics, you want to let the dashboards draw your attention somewhere so that if you want to call something out, you might use a bolder color, but complement it with a muted color so that you can actually get the effects of the colors to stand out. So when we put our colors together, we felt that we fit into Tableau's best practices, but we also had that added benefit of being friendly to our specific brand. So the third tip I'm going to talk about is around using formulas to help with your format. So Tableau has a lot of great abilities to customize your format and your visuals using their format feature, but sometimes you can't use their standard capabilities to format things quite exactly the way that you want to. So if it isn't an out-of-box feature yet, I would recommend not just stopping there, because sometimes you can be creative and come up with a calculated field to help. So here is going back to that map example. We have a map where we brought in our blue and our orange colors, and we just applied them onto the map where we're showing negative profit as orange and positive profit as blue. So the initial shading, we're using our primary colors, but Tableau kind of picks all the colors in the middle, and it becomes this gray that's difficult to differentiate. So then we tried using step colors. Again, not much of a difference because Tableau is picking all those colors that fall in the middle. And we wanted to have more control over that so that we could control every single color that was being used in the graph. So instead of just giving up, this is where we developed a calculation. So I know everyone's taking out their phones to take a picture. The materials will be available after the session if you want to take a look at this. And I wrote down the exact steps in the formula for how to do this. But basically what we're doing is we're taking everything from 0 profit to the most negative number, and we're applying 3 categories of 1, 2, and 3 based on how negative the profit is, and then doing from 0 to the most positive and doing the same thing. Once we assign a category, we can actually assign the specific color to that category that it falls within. So here's another example. We wanted to customize labels. So we have a simple viz up here where we have revenue as the label. We wanted to shorten the label and clean up the viz by showing the number in millions. So this is Tableau's format option. You can format this label automatically to be in millions and give it a little cleaner look. But then what happens when we drill down into subcategories? Because in this example, fasteners had less than 0.5 million, its revenue comes across as 0.0 million, but they didn't have $0 in sales. So again, we use a calculated field to get the label that we wanted. In this calculation, all we're doing is checking if the values are in billions, millions, or thousands, and dividing it by the appropriate amount. And then if you format this as a string, then you can apply the suffix. So now on the right, you can see with our calculated field, fasteners are getting the credit that they deserve. My last formatting tip today is around Unicode. So certain Unicode characters are recognized by Tableau Desktop and Server, and you can just do a Google search of different characters to add enhancements to your visuals and your dashboard, like using stars or up and down carrots. You can also use different fonts, such as wingdings or webdings, but just make sure if you're going to go this route that you test how it looks on the server, because sometimes it doesn't come across the same way on a different browser.
So our fourth tip is around the concept of a dashboard portal. So our team leverages a portal page to provide navigation to all of the dashboards supported by our team. This allows us to provide our users with one centralized URL that provides them all the information that they need to do their job. Within each individual dashboard, we also leverage a landing page, which helps to provide relevant information for that dashboard to our users, as well as reinforces guided analytics. So I'm going to try to demo. Okay, so this is just an example landing page that we would provide based off the Superstore data set. On the top, you can see we provide information on new views that are in the dashboard or any other relevant announcements that we would want to provide. On the top right, we provide links to our training materials or training videos that are specific to that dashboard. On the bottom, we have a return link back to our overall dashboard portal. And then we also provide a link to ask our team questions or submit enhancement requests for the dashboard. Within the middle section, that's where we help to reinforce guided analytics. We typically start with more of the high-level analysis on the left side and move on to more detailed analysis to the right. So if a user decides they want to go to the metric comparison view, all they would have to do is click on the view, and the dashboard would navigate there. And then you can leverage the view as desired. Within each view, we also provide a link back to the dashboard landing page using our Hartford logo on the top left. The fifth tip that we have is around custom date analysis or custom date functionality. So our team has built a lot of different custom date functionality to allow our users to quickly evaluate the effectiveness or impact of a particular initiative or product change. And while Tableau's date filtering capabilities are already quite robust, we needed to make it even easier for our users to compare two different time periods to each other. So again, I'm just going to demo an example of this that we built. So in this example, the users would come in and access the date parameters on the top of the dashboard. We're calling our event, you can compare the event to an initiative. It's flexible in how we want to use it, but the user would go in and select the dates in which the initiative was active. So in this scenario, the initiative was active for the first quarter of 2017, and then they have 3 different time periods in which they could compare to. So they can compare to the same number of days prior to the event. In this scenario would be essentially Q4 of 2016. They can do the same dates of prior year, which would be Q1 of 2016, or custom pre-event dates that they can select over here. So I'm just going to change the selection, same dates of prior year. You can see the pre-event, not formatted right. The pre-event dates changed accordingly, and so we have a lot of summarized metrics based on the dates that the user selected. So we have, right now we're selecting profit, what the profit was during the pre-event time period, post-event time period, and overall change. And then each of the visuals is updated based on that user selection. So all of the bars on the chart are relevant to the post-event time period, while the Gantt lines are relevant to the pre-event time period.
Bet I can make them come back. There they are.
Yeah, so we've updated it so that based on the user selection, the dates will change, so the user knows exactly what time period they're referencing. So I'm just going to walk us through the first 2 steps we would take to do this, and then the remaining steps will be built into this dashboard that will be available after the conference. So first, we need to set up all of our different parameters that we're leveraging. So the first 4 would be our post-event and pre-event start and end dates, and these are really straightforward, and they're essentially just date parameters with a name. I don't like this mouse. So very straightforward data type of date, and then that's all we have to do to create them. For the for the 5th and 6th parameters, we have to establish selections for the pre-event time frame as well as the metric selector. I didn't demo this, but the user does have the ability to go in and filter the views that they're looking at based on sales, quantity, or profit. So in this scenario, we would just name it. We use integers to help with performance, and then we establish aliases that are relevant to what the information that is relevant to the user. The second step in this example would be establishing the metric toggle calculation. So based on the parameter selection that the user chose, we establish based on whether it was a selection of 1, 2, or 3, we return the appropriate sum of sales, quantity, or profit. Once we create this calculation, you can see that we've brought in sales, quantity, and profit, as well as the metric selected calculation into the measure values, and we can just ensure that the calculation is working as expected. So right now we have profit selected, and we can validate that the metric selected calculation matches the value of profit for each year. Similarly, we can change it over to quantity, and we would see that the metric selected calculation updates accordingly. So the remaining steps in enabling this functionality are around filtering down the visuals to the appropriate post-event and pre-event time periods. And then our last tip is on documentation. So documentation for us has been extremely critical because it's used as a reference for our existing employees while they build their dashboards, and also used within the onboarding materials for our new employees. The documentation helps to ensure all of our developers are under the same understanding when they're building their dashboards. We also use it in our peer review testing process to make sure every single dashboard that's produced out of our team adheres to the guidelines of the framework. So just to wrap up today's session, we talked a lot about what a framework is, the framework that our team developed, some challenges we faced while building it, and then the benefits we've seen since its implementation. And then we also walked through 6 different tips and tricks that we learned along our journey. So now we'd like to encourage you to think about whether or not a dashboard framework could be beneficial for you or your team. Again, as mentioned, all the materials that we reviewed today will be available for you after the conference for inspiration or reference in the future. And then we ask that you please complete the survey in the app, and thank you guys for attending today's session.